no matter what you call me, it's still time to fight me!
That is Sean Wachter, aka the Cancer Fighter, a former pro wrestler who has defied the odds, from being told he could never walk again after breaking his back to beating rare forms of cancer. His journey to survive proves he is the ultimate fighter.
Wrestling was my first love, and as I tell my wife, wrestling's the other woman. It's something that I've loved my entire life. It's something that when I got sick became a rock and a storm for me.
The sickness the 40-year-old Long Island native is speaking of is a rare cancer. He was given only 3 months to live after doctors found stage 4 melanoma that became a malignant brain tumor. But for Sean, he knew that wasn't going to be the end of his story. He took his illness to the mat, and in fact, nearly a decade later, has outlived every expert analysis.
You have this amazing timeline of body art here, but each one of these has a double meaning and tells a story. Obviously, we see Rocky here. You've been known as the Rocky of wrestling.
Yeah, you can perceive it as, oh, I'm the Rocky of wrestling. Or you could say, oh, I get it, underdog, yeah, guy ran the steps, which I did do, but hey, everyone does it. But when I broke my neck and they said, hey, you may never walk again, my father printed out this picture and put it on the back of the bedroom door in his house where I was staying. He goes, that's you, you're gonna walk again.
Sean, a football player and weightlifter, started wrestling secretly.
When I was 18 years old, I was working out at a local gym wearing a ripped up old Hulk Hogan t-shirt, and a man approached me and he said, hey, do you ever think about giving wrestling a shot? And I said, well, sir, I have, and I need to focus on graduating high school. I really need to focus on my grades, so I had to stop wrestling. And he just said to me, wait, you're only 18? I thought you were 25.
Without his parents knowing, he started training.
I trained for 3 months in the winter of 2002 and 2003, and unfortunately for me, my wonderful father was a Nassau County police detective at the time, and he actually kind of figured like, I don't think he's going to church every Sunday morning with his girlfriend like he says he's doing, and he followed me down to the wrestling school, and I get out of my car and I just heard, what the, and a whole shower of profanity followed. And my automatic instinction was to take the chewing tobacco out of my lip. And he said, I don't give a damn about that chew in your mouth. I give a damn about what you're going in there to do. And just as I was trying to think of something to say off the top of my head to just be like, oh, no, nothing's going on here, nothing to see. The walls of that building were so thin and someone just got body slammed. And you just heard the ring and everything. And he just looked at me and said, get back in the car.
Sean's short-lived secret wrestling life ended in that moment, or so he thought. After going away to college playing football and lacrosse, he returned home to his parents' house and began coaching high school football as well as playing arena football. But his parents wanted more stability for their son. He could have followed in his father's footsteps and became a police officer, but he turned that down to pursue a dream of a football career.
That led to me having to stay at my grandparents' house for 3 months because my dad really didn't want to look at me.
But that football dream was short-lived.
While I was training for that workout, I tore my pec, and essentially some of the finest doctors who have worked on all sorts of NFL athletes said, this tear is so bad, you're not going to have the pushing power anymore on that arm, so effectively consider your football career done.
During his rehabilitation process and need for money, he began working various jobs, including construction, when another injury changed his life.
I wound up taking a pretty nasty fall. Wound up breaking my neck and back in multiple places, and it got to the point that I was told that I have to accept the fact that I may never walk again and that I needed emergency surgery, which actually wound up being one of 9 surgeries I wound up having ultimately to fix my spine. I'll tell you, it was a very difficult 3 years. Difficult more mentally than physically. Prior to me being in that accident, I was close to being a 300-pound power lifter. I was not a meek person. I was not somebody that felt helpless, but now that's basically what I became. I was in a halo brace from my head to my high knee. It was humbling. I had maybe gone on a few dates during that time where I'd come in with either a walker or thankfully later on a cane. And I had some young ladies who just said, nope, I'm good, got up and just walked out, said it was too much for them. I've made a life of proving people wrong. So I would wake up every morning with that halo on and I would go trekking the best I could for a couple miles around the track, and whatever device I needed to use to get around with, I used it. And when I was finally told, like, time to take this whole thing off, I had a surgeon who had a very old school, antiquated approach. Like, this is it, your life is over, this is your new normal, you're not gonna do anything again. And that to me was not acceptable. I needed 8 other surgeries over 16 fusions, but as time progressed and I needed more surgeries, it just got to be such a norm for me that I would literally maybe wait the 2 weeks until they took the staples out, and then it was right back to lifting weights, because that to me was the closest thing that I could have gotten to therapy. It's honestly one of the reasons why I'm still here.
So as soon as you learn to start walk again, you defy your doctor's orders, because again, you're starting to wrestle again, and life is starting to feel pretty good and normal, and then another diagnosis happens.
Like I said, the wrestling got shut down, unfortunately, by the broken neck. Just kind of trying to learn what my new normal was. Not that normal is a word ever associated with me. Just as I learned how to finally walk unassisted again, things weren't just adding up. A lot of headaches, a lot of nausea, a lot of weird pains that I didn't experience before, some vision disturbances, and I kept going back to my doctors. They kept telling me it's all in your head.
But then Sean suffered a stroke.
I was on the floor convulsing. I had an episode of Bell's palsy. I began to vomit profusely. My legs went completely out. And I just happened to be fortunate enough to mash my pocket in the right way that had actually got my dad on the phone. And all he could hear was me gurgled, crying for help. And being his years as a Vietnam veteran, a first responder through the police department, he knew something was wrong, and he blew every light he could to get back to that house. And he threw me over his shoulder at 70-something years old and picked my 240-pound rear end off the floor and threw me in the car. I had probably about 7 or 8 doctors now surrounding me as my parents are stuck there watching their only son bleed to death from the brain. It took, I think, a good 3 or 4 infusions to get the blood to finally stop and start clotting. And a week after that, I had a craniotomy to remove a golf ball-sized brain tumor. So I guess they were kind of right. It was all in my head. And when they were halfway through the procedure, they came out into the waiting room, and the doctor who had been doing neurosurgery for 28 years looked my parents in the eye and he said, "I'm very sorry. Your son has cancer, and it's melanoma. I've never seen a brain tumor this bad from melanoma."
As Sean was in the hospital recovering, his father broke the news to him.
I recovered 2 days from the surgery, and I woke up to my dad rubbing my ankle. The last time I woke up to my dad rubbing my ankle, I was in a hospital from breaking my neck. He said to me, "Sean, has anyone told you anything?" And I said, "No, sir." And he says, "Sean, you have cancer." And I just looked him dead in the eye and I said, "Okay, sir."
It would be the fight of his life. For the second time in his young life, he was told he would never walk again. And for the second time in his life, he wanted to prove every expert wrong.
You had just learned to walk again. Weren't you now not going to be able to walk again?
Yeah.
Like that was one of the things that when they removed the tumor, is that correct?
Well, so this particular tumor was sitting right on my cerebellum, and that controls your center for balance and where you have your ability to walk. So I had to go through it all over again. Wheelchair, walker, cane. Thankfully, it came back a lot quicker, but still, it was just like okay, we've been here before. Like, let's do this.
Sean began treatment, but once again found himself confronted with another terrifying diagnosis.
The radiation with both the chemotherapy and the immunotherapy with the other medications, I guess, kind of overtaxed my system, and I started to take these very, very vicious seizures. And one of them essentially left me brain dead for a few seconds. And at that point, they decided we need to run some further medical testing, and they found out that the cancer had spread to my spinal cord fluid. And the prognosis for that is no longer than 3 months. The late, great ESPN SportsCenter anchor, Stuart Scott, passed away in 2014. Before he passed away, he received the Jim Valvano Courage Award from the V Foundation. Stuart was quoted as saying, "When you die from cancer, it doesn't mean you lose to cancer. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and the manner in which you live. So live." Every day past that 3 months was an additional gift. I had said to my father, "I'm not going to sit here and rot away on your couch." As I started to progress in a positive direction, I started to notice for the first time people were like, "Oh wait, he's doing this."
In this time, he started exercising again. He returned to coaching high school football and met the person who would alter his life in every possible way. A single mom he immediately fell for.
It looked like someone turned the lights on, and they really gave me something to push and fight for.
Sean moved out of his parents' house, moved in with his new family while still battling his cancer and getting surgeries on his neck. But if that wasn't enough to fulfill a life in what was to be his final 3 months, he was still missing one thing: the wrestling ring. On a dare from his friends, Sean returned to the ring in a special charity match, and everything changed. He started getting better. He began hitting the wrestling circuit as an amateur fighter and was living beyond what doctors expected. However, following an event in LA, he noticed something was off with his arm. After consulting a few doctors when he got back to New York, he was told the cancer had spread.
Kept on going, refused to tap once again. I can proudly say I finished my MBA while I was going through all this treatment and all this other stuff, and graduated with honors from Fitchburg University. And fortunately for me, the last 3 scans I've had that have come back have all been pretty much been marked stable or inactive disease.
Once Sean was given the all clear from cancer, he had asked his doctors the most important question of them all.
I'm a glutton for punishment, so I said, "Well, when can I get back in here?" And my doctor said, "Well, there's nothing from an oncological standpoint that is stopping you." So I said, "Well, that's good enough for me."
As his wrestling profile rose, he was given a chance to try out for both WWE and NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, owned by Smashing Pumpkins singer Billy Corgan. But his dreams of going pro, much like football, were dashed after a concussion sidelined him earlier this year.
I had to go to my doctors at Sloan Kettering to make sure it was just that, a concussion and nothing cancer related again. And they told me, "Sean, it's time to call it a day."
Taken my in-ring career, I've wrapped it up and I've put it now in that little box where it rightfully belongs, but now I get to have second life by doing the behind the scenes.
It breaks my heart that I have to take my boots here and put them down in the ring and retire.
Sean now runs the ring where he first learned to wrestle, the New York Wrestling Connection, among other successful business ventures. Before hanging up his boots for good, last year his girls got to see him fulfill one big dream: performing for WWE. Well, not exactly as a wrestler, but as part of the entertainment in front of a sold-out Madison Square Garden for a taping of SmackDown.
Goosebumps even now thinking about it.
Now cancer-free, he still gets elective treatments as a precaution. But Sean Wachter, the cancer fighter, says it was all worth it.
I wouldn't trade it again. I would relive my life. I'd relive all the same mistakes. I'm happy. In this war, I found peace. It's a peace that I've gotten that if I didn't go through all this horrible stuff, I would have never never gotten it. And I am so blessed and honored. Honestly, cancer was the most beautiful thing that could have happened to my life.